Greetings, Berkshire County, and thank you for joining us on iBerkshiresTV. Today we are joined, as you can see, by the Town Administrator of the Town of Cheshire, Ed St. John, and also the Chair of the Select Board, Michelle Francesconi. And if you have been keeping up, a lot of their meetings that I'm lucky enough to go to do have to do with, a few years ago, Cheshire Elementary School closed. And probably like a lot of towns in Massachusetts, been struggling to do with municipal buildings that have closed and how to reuse them best. Is there a market for it? Is there not a market for it? So we're going to hit on all types of stuff like that today. Ed, we'll start with you. Give us a little bit of the background. I know you mentioned, we were talking prior here, you mentioned in 2016 kind of the process started. That this could be a possibility. Why don't you go ahead and educate us a little bit?
Sure. So really the major decisions came down in 2017. At the time, I was on the school committee during that process, but just prior to that, the town of Cheshire had started engaging in a master plan development. And obviously the education was a huge component of that. And there were always rumblings about a potential school closing in the near future based on the financial situations of the communities, student population, so on and so on. You might remember that I believe it was the Collins Center. Yeah. Collins Center came out with a report, or was in the process as well of formulating a report. So that all of that was going on in the background, and in the spring of 2017. The school committee ultimately decided to consolidate and close Cheshire Elementary School. No surprise, being from Cheshire, I was not in favor of that. My opinion, along with obviously a lot of people in town, was that Cheshire School was the best building and property to keep open. That didn't happen, and unfortunately, I don't mean to begrudge the past. I mean, we have to look past that sometimes and move on, but the town of Cheshire didn't have a lot of time to transition, if you will, into the ownership of that building. And so since then, the town has been looking into being proactive in ways to reuse that property, the building, and what is the best use for the community, what's the best use for the town. That, since its beginning, that property has always been a gem of Cheshire. It sits on 10 plus acres of land. There's 2 brand new playgrounds to it. There's 2 ball fields that are attached to the property. A lot of youth sports use the property. So it's really an active community hub. And I think that's, not speaking for the board, but I think that's kind of the recognition that has really taken place, that this is a real asset to the community. Yes, it's expensive to maintain an aging building, but the town has taken a lot of steps to understand the condition of the building, to study the building, and to ultimately come up with a plan to move forward for the best reuse of that property.
And I think you mentioning this almost seems like the timing is perfect. And Michelle, I'll let you speak to this. I know, being in the meetings, you probably rarely go 2 meetings in a row without talking about the school. But also, I've heard, most municipalities' buildings need work. We're not all busting with money that we can keep them beautiful and perfect. And I know Cheshire Town Hall, I am sure, probably needs some work. The police department probably needs some work. I know you've got green community money coming to do some upgrades on the fire department. But Michelle, you came on the board when it expanded to 5 about a year ago. And I would say you at least introduced the topic at most meetings. And this is definitely has been on the forefront of your mind since you were elected to the board.
Absolutely. The community members had sounding voice in expressing their interest in what was going to happen with that building. I know we had the reuse committee. They had worked behind the scenes on developing a plan of potentially moving town hall there. Community stakeholders were wondering what we were going to do with the property. They didn't want to see it fall to the wayside and not be maintained, but at the same time, they wanted the board to address the fact that it costs a lot of money to maintain a building. Even a new structure, I mean, no building, no property is without maintenance and without costs. So it was a matter of determining, as a board of selectmen, what would be the best use of that property moving forward. Should we keep it and retain ownership, or should we, seek other avenues, other developers maybe to come in and utilize that property? Ultimately, and it was at the Board of Selectmen's meeting last night that we officially voted as a board to retain the building and move forward with developing architectural renderings of what that property could potentially become. So, and in that the thought process behind where the board was headed, we know that that property, given the size, the acreage, the size of the building, and what our needs are as a town, try to push everything together into one overall concept that will help address the needs on various levels for town, government. So not just with the council, pull together the Council on Aging. We already have the youth center, who has 9 years left of a lease on that property, but and do a multi-generational, multi-purpose space that really can address the needs of the that the community members were voicing to us as a board of selectmen. The need to have outdoor space for sports teams, and for small gatherings of pickleball players or children joining together on the playground. And the Cheshire Elementary School PTG really had spearheaded an amazing campaign to replace a playground that virtually went unused because the timing of that playground replacement directly preceded the closing of the elementary school. So there was a loss for the families and the children in town to lose that building, but as a school, but we have the opportunity now to take that building and make it something that everybody can benefit from. And structurally, the building, especially the new wing, is really structurally sound. I mean, it needs a new heating system. The grounds, we need to maintain them, and it takes time, but we're addressing all of those the details, and really looking to reshape that into an opportunity for everyone, that each department, the town hall moving there, and everybody working together in a more cohesive fashion to create something that's unique and dynamic for our community.
And I think you used the word unique. There are two things at play to me here. It would be unique. It's a highly accessible building, number one. Number two, the whole genius of this in my mind might be the simplicity of it all. For years, with the market going crazy, the real estate market, obviously we had a dip about 12 years ago, but before that, and not so much after that, but the market was crazy. There wasn't a building that was empty for more than 5 minutes. Someone snapped it up and it was condos or apartments or senior living or run. That's not happening anymore. And I think too many municipalities are hanging on to that. Well, somebody's going to come along and buy it. Somebody would want this building to do this or to do that. But to me, the genius of this is, well, we can extend the life of all of our buildings in one. The town hall, our police, maybe in the future, your police station. If all the emergency services do go over there, I know, which would be a whole other thing, and maybe that's a different interview. As is pickleball, by the way. We need about 20 to cover all the ins and outs of the pickleball community. But getting back to the school, I think it makes too much sense. And it is going to, as you said last night, it is going to take probably some convincing at a town meeting. How do you feel that might go? Do you have any early signs of whether that might be a positive or a negative reception to investing in the school through either an override or raising taxes or something like that?
Well, I think before we get to any parts of those discussions, we have to do our due diligence. We have to gather the facts. We have to see what's actually involved in doing this. I mean, who knows? This could be a $200 million project. I don't think it's going to be, but this could be something that we say, all right, maybe there's got to be another plan. So, but I think before we even get to that stage of the discussion, we need to know what the facts are, what the costs are going to be for all of this, and then work on that. I mean, there's a lot of not just relying on the taxpayers to fund this, but there are a lot of grants out there and programs out there that are very geared towards this exact kind of project. I mean, I remember a few years ago, the youth center worked with the town of Adams to secure some remnants of block grant CDBG money to completely replace 80% of the roof at the memorial building in Adams. So there's a great partnership, if you will. And as Michelle said, it's the multi-generational, the cross-generational programming that is so beneficial to everybody who takes part in that, and that agencies are very willing to contribute to seeing that come to realization. So there's a lot of different areas to pull from before we get to a final ask, if you will, of the townspeople. But in order to get there, like I said, we really need to do our due diligence and really need to see what the costs and numbers are going to be and what the data is going to be to back up any request or decision made, or request, I should say, of the town meeting.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michelle.
So and from my perspective, I mean, we have already been doing our due diligence. I mean, like you said, Jeff, almost every meeting we've touched on the topic of the school building. We've, as a board of selectmen, in conjunction with the town administrator and other town departments, including the highway department, and the building inspector and the board of health, I mean, we've had numerous multifaceted discussions regarding that property. And I think that the community members have watched us go through that process, that we've genuinely had questions. And now we've arrived at the end of this year, almost a year with a 5-member select board. But 4 of us are all within the past year brand new. So we've moved into this process with a fresh set of eyes and numerous sets of eyes, and really tried to arrive at this decision that was made last night with forethought. So I think that the community members are going to appreciate the fact that we didn't just jump into it. We didn't come in as a new board of selectmen and just say, we're going to keep this building, let's figure out how to make it work. So we've already, we've seen that the market isn't, there's numerous school buildings, vacant school buildings throughout the Berkshires and beyond that are still vacant despite being on the market for many years, despite numerous RFP processes, going out. There really isn't interest. And, and we're not Adams and Cheshire are in this unique position in Cheshire too. We're not a cultural destination point where it's an easy sell to maybe put condominiums into a space that might be, second homeowners that are coming here to vacation. We're just not we're not quite there yet. I mean, we have a ton of assets between the two communities. Not to tie Adams into this, but at the same time, we're both, we work together obviously through the school district, and, our communities kind of go hand in hand. And that's something that we recognize. We share the rail trail. I mean, just the northern section just closed right now. And then, now it's back to the southern section being open. So, but, the rail trail being one of our assets, but we need our school building. We don't want that in the center of town to be a large hulk of a vacant space that deteriorates over time. And, especially if we don't have the opportunity to have someone come in and put housing in, at least we can take that and create a space that will benefit everyone in the community. And I mean, even as simple as overflow parking for the rail trail, one of our assets, it's right downtown, it's easily identifiable, accessible, and it provides so much potential that I think that the community members, once they hear the plans and hear how they'll benefit from those plans. I mean, our Council on Aging has created a really successful program, and they've gone leaps and bounds into the future, so to speak. From a year ago to now, they've made so much progress that I think they're expanding at a rate that's exponentially taking them out of their current situation too. Like they're outgrowing their space. So we recognize that if we continue to build in the way that we have been building, we're going to need a space like Cheshire Elementary School to expand our town offerings. And so I think when the community members see that we're willing, we're committed, and we don't just want to dump the financial burden on the taxpayers exclusively, I think that they're more willing to buy into the project.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is just simply going to be getting the information out there and making sure people have the right information, knowing the work that has been done. And it's very, very step by step, as you guys obviously know. So that's the school. The school is intended now to be the sort of hub of the town, where maybe in the future, if fire is there, police is there, it's going to be the senior center, the town hall, anything else you could possibly think of that you can fit into that. And obviously the youth center is a great sort of anchor. But for getting the word out there, you guys have a tent site. I won't say opening up soon for the Appalachian Trail, but well, how would you describe? I'm trying to be careful here. It's a tent site right down the street, right on, I guess it would be Main Street technically, for Appalachian Trail hikers to use. You talked about it at last night's meeting. It is sort of being used now. And where does that stand? It's coming up. I know the Eileen Quinn from the committee wanted to have a soft opening, and that might happen soon. Why don't you give a little update on that, if you could, Michelle?
All right, so officially called the Father Tom campsite, in recognition of a priest that had been at St. Mary's years ago that had spearheaded an opportunity for hikers to find respite here in Cheshire. And so the town of Cheshire took over that. It was supposed to have a full opening this past weekend was supposed to be that grand opening ceremony. And obviously due to COVID, that didn't happen. But there's been a great team between the Appalachian Mountain Club and the Appalachian Trail Community Committee from Cheshire, under the direction of Eileen Quinn, and then Cosmo Catalano and Jim Peltier from the AMC. They've really worked with a great team of volunteers to prep this site for hiker usage. So although we're not ready to open, there are hikers. We recognize there are hikers on the trail right now, and they are, we were in the Appalachian Trail guidebook prior to the start of the hiking season. So there are hikers that are unofficially camping on the site, and so we're prepping the site for a future true opening, but also recognizing the fact that the hikers have to stay somewhere, and they are traveling through town. They're part of the fabric of this community. When the hiker, spring is here when you start to see the first hikers coming off and heading northbound, and it's a sign that the weather's getting nicer. And so we recognize that they play a role in our community by supporting our businesses and coming in town. So we haven't discouraged or blocked them from being here, but we haven't officially opened that site. So the volunteers this past weekend, they put former telephone poles in the ground as hammock stands. They built a shelter for bicycles that hikers will be able to borrow and hop on the rail trail. That will benefit the communities of Adams and Cheshire and Lanesboro, where hikers can hop on and go in either direction when the trail is fully open. Or even just hop on Route 8, they can, take the bikes and ride. And eventually there'll be power stations for hikers to charge their electronic devices, restroom or a porta potty to be accessible. None of those things are in place yet, but the work is being done. And so we're hoping for that soft opening, so to speak, with just a recognition of the fact that the hikers are there and providing them with a small amount of amenities until we can fully open.
Yeah, it was definitely, I really hold it up to a lot of people who ask me about it, as, so many times the town wants to do something, but the neighbors don't want it, or the neighbors need something, but the town can't do it because of, say, money. Or you have a great group of volunteers that wants to do something, but you can't do it because you can't quite find the right site. This was everything coming together perfectly at the right time with people invested in it. and it's just, it's a great thing. I mean, I see these guys mostly up here in like the Williamstown, North Adams corridor, and I'll tell you, they look ragged, and they need potable water, and they need a bathroom, and they need to charge their phone, and I'm sure they're all going to love it and be incredibly appreciative of it.
Yeah, this is just you hit it on the head. I mean, this is just a great example of everybody, stakeholders coming together in the town, identifying I don't want to say a problem, but something in need of a solution at least, and identifying what the issues were, overcoming those issues, and really doing it the right way, and everybody pitching in, everybody donating their time, materials, labor. Like I said, this is just a great example of the community coming together around a great cause. We are an Appalachian Trail friendly community, and this is right on the trail basically. And this is just so great for our community to be able to continue to host these through hikers and to be able to provide some level of amenities, if you will, for them to, drink water, to charge their devices, and, everything that you just mentioned.
It's Michelle and Ed, I can't thank you enough. Those are just a couple of the things coming out of Cheshire. I wanted to talk about Cheese Fest. I was hoping I'm dead serious. I was hoping we could get it in there, but we will talk about that at another time. There will be a Cheese Fest in 2021, though. If you don't know what it is, you can Google it and you can find it. It took a short hiatus, but it will be here next year when we can all gather again, hopefully. But I can't thank you guys enough for joining, and good luck with everything going on in Cheshire. And thank you all for joining us here on iBerkshiresTV.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jeff.
Jeff.